Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you to this session on socially just public transport. With me here, I have two other participants. One is Penina Ndegwa from WOMAM, and who advocates for better spaces for both women and children in both public transport and in the public sector generally. I believe I also have Dr. Anne Kamau. I just need that confirmation, whether it is Catherine Gateri or Anne Kamau joining us to attend this session. Anne, is it you?
Yes, Constant. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. I was just confirming because I talked to Penina earlier on. Okay, so we'll have for this session, and I'll basically divide it into four different parts. I'll give Penina an opportunity to give us a short presentation about WOMAM and what they're doing, and then Dr. Anne Kamau will also. Dr. Anne Kamau, just by a brief introduction, is from IDS, the Institute for Development Studies at the University of Nairobi. Both Anne and Penina are members of the Socially Just Public Transport Working Group, which is a multi-sectoral group of interested stakeholders in the public sector, ranging from workers, academics, planners, professionals, public sector actors who advocate and are driving for more socially just public transport. And what we mean by socially just public transport, we mean public transport that fits the needs for all and accommodates everyone. And these are encompassed in what we call the pillars of socially just public transport. These pillars will clearly come out during this session, these being availability, accessibility and affordability, being inclusive, taking care of human rights and equity, as well as being sustainable. I will start the session by giving Penina a chance to tell us a bit about the work they're doing around WOMAM. Then Dr. Anne Kamau will tell us a bit about some of the work they've done with under the VREF, the Volvo Foundation Fund. And I'll also give a bit of an overview after that about how these pillars of socially just public transport get integrated into our structures and our systems. So I'll open the floor for Penina.
Thank you so much, Constant. I am hoping that I am audible. Yeah, so my name is Penina Ndegwa. I'm the founder and the managing director of WOMAM Kenya, a social enterprise that advocates for children-friendly cities. So I was here yesterday, but representing UNEP, but today I'm here just as the founder of WOMAM, just talking about mostly children and their caregivers and how they experience the city. I'm an urban planner by profession, and always glad to be here at Tweet, and congratulations to the Flone team, Naomi, for your consistency and persistence in making sure that this conference happens every other year, and of course, creating more opportunities for women like us. Through this conference, WOMAM has actually been one of the key beneficiaries. We've been able to grow and reach out to our work across the world. So thank you so much. So back to WOMAM. We are a social enterprise and we advocate for children-friendly cities. All we want to see or to do is just to create cities where children can grow, learn, and thrive. We know if the children are able to grow in a favorable environment, we are highly likely to influence their future and the people they become. And now with more children growing up in cities, we want to be at the forefront of making sure that their needs are articulated, specifically mobility. So other things other than mobility that we do train caregivers or mothers on first aid, because we know accidents happen at home, and I do know even as transport workers in the room, it's always important to just learn basic first aid, so that you're able to tend to, your children or any even passengers during accidents or emergencies during your travels. And you also train caregivers on nutrition, because we want healthy children. Before you go to the city, safety and nutrition has to come first. Well-fed babies, they'll be able to enjoy the public spaces that we design. Without that, then we can't. So we work on that. We also do a lot of advocacy, research around urban planning issues, and water sanitation and hygiene. And I'll be presenting a few of that in the course of the presentation. This is a slide. I was just telling Constant that I've consistently shared this slide over the last 3 years. Okay, this is the third year, but I never feel like stopping to present it until we change the status quo. So this was a conversation on Facebook among moms, and they're talking about how you would need a stroller. And the responses, I know for the ladies in the room who can be able to read, they were just talking about that this is not something for the basic mom, the normal woman like us. You needed to, if you're in this particular, if you need a stroller, then you are highly likely to require a car, a private car, which of course majority of us do not have. And then again, thinking about even how to use it in a public transport matatu. First of all, some doors are very narrow. And because they're very narrow, you are not able to, be able to dock your stroller nicely. Again, thinking about how you even navigate the city with a stroller. The footpaths are not available. They end at some point. Sometimes they have bollards and you're not able to move around the city. So basically from what I would pick up as a transport specialist is that for you to have a stroller, you would require a car. And that's not what we want. Women and children need to just enjoy their cities, not necessarily because they have a car, but they should be able to move out, freely. So moving forward, then if we cannot allow the strollers to move around the city, then what do mothers do, especially caregivers, particularly mothers, because you're the majority of caregivers? We have to carry these babies on our backs. And there's nothing like a child alone. It's always a child and their caregiver. You can see the ladies carrying the babies. They're big, they're heavy. And then you have to carry a diaper bag, you have to carry shopping, you have to carry other things. So we are really making women to carry more luggage. Of course, it's an African culture to carry our children on the back. But at the same time, when you're running errands, you don't want to go home with your shoulder bent just because you're carrying a baby. So how can we make our spaces more comfortable for caregivers? And then again, children are little explorers. They want to, enjoy the city, interact with nature, be able to be in a place where they can be able to play, just experience and enjoy the city, maybe hang around with the friends. Sometimes they get tired, they want to have a bench to sit on. And sometimes we don't provide that. You can see this child, of course, this looks like a couple, and one child is already at the back of the mother, again, carrying a very heavy bag. And then you have the dad holding, you can tell by the way the grip is, firmly holding the child, like, hey, you cannot keep running around. And that's just an indicator of how unsafe our street is. If it is free, then you would just be able to see children walking freely, and they need to. We are curbing the independence just by making our cities very unsafe for children. And of course, like I mentioned, some of the footpaths again end at the footpaths. And so for a child, you have to assist them to jump over open drains. And some of them are small. Again, you have to keep lifting them. Think about being a person with disability. Can you actually then be able to carry that child over a bridge, or will require more assistance? So we definitely need to make sure that these facilities, the street spaces are safe. We do not have open drains such that if the children are also playing and exploring on the street, they don't have to fall into some of those open drains. And again, we also need to not think about children being as homogeneous, like they are different. They are boys, they are girls, they see and experience cities differently. They're of different races, at least not in Kenya. We don't have a lot of, most of us are Black. But in some countries or continent, we do have, cosmopolitan or rather different races. Do all children really feel safe walking in that space? Are they discriminated for who they are? And again, there are those who are able and those who are physically disabled. So how do you actually ensure that they are able to to move around the city with little or no assistance at all. So those are some of the challenges that children experience. And if these children grow up not feeling independent just because of how the cities are designed, then how do they become in future? I grew up a bit in the village, and I remember in my early years of school, I would walk to school, but it's not happening nowadays. We stuff our children in cars or in school buses because the streets are not safe. And again, obesity is on the rise in Africa. Actually, it's expected that 1 in every 10 children by end of next year, those children are going to be obese. And we know that by just children walking to school, it's going to make them more healthy, at least able to meet the daily count of steps that they need to take every day for their physical activity. But then if we don't make our streets safe, how will the children even access those facilities? Going now to public transportation. Again, we have realized that at least in Nairobi, we do not have priority seating in public transport. And now that I'm speaking to a group of women or champions who are already in the sector, I want you guys to think differently about how you see women traveling in the city. I have experienced this and I'll share my story shortly. But again, a woman is never traveling alone. It's always a bag and a child, and you have to hold them, and you have to even request the person sitting next to you to help you. And you can imagine that the risk of losing your valuable items just because you cannot access, you don't have priority seating. And sometimes when you board these matatus, my experience is that the worst thing you can do is to board in an intermediary stage. If you go to Nairobi CBD, you have the option of choosing the seat where you want to sit. But now if you're stopping in a stage along, maybe around the estate, the matatus will come in a hurry. You are carrying a baby, you board the matatu, you are carrying another bag, a diaper bag, and then you have to think about where to sit, because there's no designation that this is the place where I need to sit. And then in the process, no one is actually standing on for you or giving you priority just because you're carrying a baby. Then the aisles again are very short, they're very narrow. So again, very uncomfortable, even for pregnant women, like especially for the 14-seater. There's a level of pregnancy that reaches that a woman cannot comfortably be able to navigate on these aisles. And that just limits how women and our caregivers and children travel. So we need to make sure that we have priority seating in our matatu sector, making sure that when the woman with the child is seen, that they're given that priority and they're able to board. And of course, even thinking about even the caregiver herself, is she even comfortable? The space between, the seat, are you able now to hold a child comfortably during your travel? So that's the other thing. And now, of course, even in the bicycles, we have realized that we do not have quality cycle tracks across the city. For me, I have not changed. 3 years later, I still only cycle with my daughter in Karura for her safety reasons. But if we can be able to slow down traffic, the photo on your left is in Dandora, and I love this photo because at least there, the streets are safe. They may not have necessarily, it's a shared street where the vehicles, the pedestrians can comfortably walk, but then there's traffic calming such that the vehicles are able to slow down and they're able to, caregivers can navigate with their bicycles. But then also thinking about the design of the bicycle, as you can see, this caregiver has just placed sort of a mattress on the bicycle for the comfort of the child. But can we also see innovation around transportation, where we're able to now see that caregivers and children can comfortably be transported differently using the bicycles? Because by design, it's also going to encourage more children to travel. Maybe you have seen this photo, rather video. And again, now going back to the school-going children and how they move. And for me, this is a video that has really scared me. And it's of children crossing the streets along the expressway near the Safaricom stage. And these children have to cross these streets every other day. And you can see they are quite a number. They are very young. There's no traffic calming. There's no priority crossings. There's no traffic marshals. So it's a daily risk. You can see the child bending again because it's an indication. So this is something that these children have to do every day. I do not know whether as a parent, you would be peaceful at home. You can see the kids have to run across the road every other time. And just, I don't have to show the whole video, but basically it's extremely dangerous. You can see again, women trying to cross over and it's very uncomfortable, especially if you're in a dress. And it just shows how we have not prioritized our people. And is it actually about cost? But I'll talk about that in a short while. So in summary, mobility should not be treated in isolation. We must integrate land use and transport planning to ensure that there are other facilities that children and their caregivers require. And just to maybe highlight on this, I talked about my experience in Matatu. And for me, other than just experiencing as a caregiver how inconveniencing it is to travel with a child, I also happened to one particular time traveling with my daughter, and she needed her diapers changed, and I was in Nairobi CBD Conja stage, and I'm wondering, where do I actually get that private space where I can dignify her to change her soil diaper before getting to my final destination? And I remember walking around the city in denial, actually wondering how comes nobody has thought about providing baby changing station. We do have a lot of plenty of public toilets. The cleanliness is another thing altogether, but at least they're available, but then there's no place. And I remember asking a few of the public toilet operators, is there a place for me to change a baby? And they would tell me, okay, you can change the baby on top of the sinks or on top of the dirty tanks on top of outside the public toilets, and it's extremely uncomfortable. So what I ended up doing, I went to CG restaurant, which is almost a kilometer away from where I was, because I spent more time in denial looking for other places, bought coffee and then changed my baby. And I realized, you know what, this should not be the story for more caregivers. And why would I have to pay so much money just to change a baby? And so what we did as one mom, we initiated a study because we wanted to find out, does lack of baby changing station affect how caregivers travel around with their babies? And what we found out is that 84% of caregivers, they avoid traveling their children just because they cannot access baby changing stations. And the worst part is, I'm sure everybody has seen a soil diaper on the street. It's not about recklessness of the caregivers. It's just because there's no provision, because diapers are bulky. So even as much as you're going to have that place to throw a soil diaper on the street, then they were not allowed to just dispose the diapers on the inside the public toilet. So yes, you can even change outside the tank, very dirty, exposing your child to germs, and then you still will not have to carry a soil diaper home, which is extremely inconveniencing. You can imagine now boarding a matatu with a soil diaper. It's extremely annoying and bad. So what we've tried to do as one mom, we are trying to change the status quo. We now have our own baby changing station. And actually proud to say the time we presented this project the first time at a WIT conference in 2020, we didn't even have baby changing stations. So right now we have our own baby changing stations that have been piloted and tested, and we are working towards installing them. And one of our initial project was in Gekomba Market in Quarry Road. So before that, mothers would change their babies on these carton boxes. And again, you can see they are not easy to sanitize. They are on the floor. You have to squat. And again, there's no provision for diaper bin. And so we changed that by dignifying the children and the mothers by installing the baby changing station. And also we went to OTC public toilet, another great public toilet. So this is the place where they had designated for caregivers to change the baby on top of the sink, and it was soiled and wet. Then we provided this baby changing station. By the way, this has really attracted a lot of customers. You can also purchase the baby changing station from us, or we install in your stage as a circle or in the terminals that you operate, so that for caregivers or for mothers traveling with children for long distances, they have the convenience of changing a diaper before they board your matatu, to avoid that inconvenience as they travel. And this toilet actually can serve up to 10,000 people per day. So you can imagine how our model works is that, yes, we provide the baby changing station, but you also advertise on the baby changing station. So for OTC public toilet, you can imagine your product will come into contact with, let's say, if Flone Initiative sponsored this. So your your logo will, or your product will come into contact with over 10,000 people, fresh people every other day, because the toilet operates 24 hours and it's in a busy location. So just for those who may wonder how we're increasing the accessibility of these facilities, we may provide them for free, especially in the public transport terminuses, in the public toilets, but then you also advertise on the space. That's how we're able to get our revenue back. The baby changing stations are tried and tested. Their quality, they have, having been tested in a very busy location, like OTC and Gikomba, we have not experienced any sort of breakage, and they're still in good condition. And I'm happy to report that we've installed over 15 baby. Actually, right now we are 20, and have served over 100,000 children and caregivers this year. So great progress, and we hope to increase the accessibility of these facilities across the country. So moving back to other spaces where caregivers need. So for Gikomba Market, we, other than just installing the baby changing station, we could see that the mothers were sleeping on the children were sleeping on the floor, and the children would get so sick. And maybe you're wondering, why do these mothers bring their children to work every day? It's because the cost of caregiving is very high, and the mothers are not able to afford alternative services like paying daycares. And the daycares that they would access, they again small rooms that are dark, crowded, like you'll find a very small room with over 50 to 30 children being taken care by a person who's not even trained. And so the mothers would, there's a lot of cross infection, and the children would always get sick. So the mothers prefer to bring their children in, they would rather sleep here. Like, this is a better option compared to the daycares, you can imagine. And so when we went here, we were like, no, we can do something better. And we transformed this space. We made it more child-friendly by making provision for a better place for the children to sleep, a place for the storage space for the mothers to keep their food, and changing clothes for the babies, and of course the baby changing station, and of course having a sink where they can be able to change their children. So I'll just play this video to show you how it was before. So we painted the space to just make it more attractive for children, to make it more educative. We have a carpet where the children can comfortably play on the floor. We have a baby cot. We have the storage spaces. It is a very small room, but we really try to maximize everything. And of course, passing around the message for hand washing. And that's our baby changing station. That's how they work. They are deep enough. They come with a strap that you can be able to, safely secure your baby, that your baby does not fall. It also has a place for, placing your diaper, changing essentials. Yeah, and again, the color is great. So it really matches with a lot of the toilets, bathrooms, and how they're designed. And it's something that you fold on the wall, so taking a little space. And of course, we have a diaper bins, very wide, comfortable enough to throw the soil diaper. Again, you don't have to keep opening with your hands. And that's how it is. The children are enjoying the space. And what happened, we had just gone there to just do the baby changing station, but now it's already almost a fully operational crèche, hosting of, actually we've served over 150 children since we started, and now we are currently training the caregivers so that they can learn more things on how to handle young children. And those children now, the caregivers spend less money on health, and they're able to have more time with their children, and they're able to focus more on their businesses. And now going back to other spaces that children may need in the city, we have to think about play, because play is vital. So we need to have accessible play facilities that children can comfortably walk to access from the neighborhoods. During COVID, we realized how important those facilities are, that they don't have to stay for long or outside by themselves or be taken by a caregiver to play. Children should be able to do that by themselves. And of course, I love this park all the time. It's in the Dora Believers Court. Other than just providing that beautiful space, they have also ensured that they have provided a library where children can learn, which is extremely exciting. And maybe going back to again to the street space, we've seen a lot, like during October, we saw Nairobi Placemaking Week, where a lot of organizations come together, do this painting to just sensitize people on how the street would look like if all these interventions are created. And for sure, they're able to inspire change. It's more participatory. Communities are able to participate and give their opinions. But sometimes I keep wondering, is it really necessary to just do temporary intervention when we can afford better? And we've seen like this again in Kisumu and around safe school zones, just to promote, to reduce the traffic speed. They are good. They work for a very short time until the rain comes and all the paint is gone. And maybe even before I go to why I think we need to come up with permanent infrastructure, just to report that WAMAM has been part of the Street for Kids Accelerator program led by the Global Design Street Cities Initiative, GDCI. And we've partnered with Kisumu City. I think Judy was presenting yesterday, and you heard about the great things that are happening in Kisumu. And I'm happy to report that next year we'll actually be rolling out a Safe School Zone project in Kisumu City. We've already identified the schools. So we are definitely looking out for more partners who can join us in making sure that we implement that project for the safety of our school-going children, so that we can set a model of how a safe school zone should look like for our children. And going back to interventions, I do love all those temporary interventions, but I'm always wondering why we need to do the temporary interventions while we are affording billions of worth of infrastructure, just focusing on the cars. The same place where I had shown you the children crossing along Waiyaki Way is the same place where they have built this expensive road. So how do you tell me that they cannot be able to afford a footpath or a safe crossing for the children? How? With such an expensive infrastructure. So it's just that our priorities are not there, and we definitely need to talk a lot more on ensuring that pedestrians, especially children, school-going children, are prioritized in accessing school facilities. And again, talking about footbridges, we also have the most expensive footbridges in the world. Why? Is it really necessary? And again, think about the mother who is carrying a baby and a diaper bag, traveling to and maybe having multiple children and you're traveling to the village for Christmas. How do you force such a mother to go up such stairs or such long distances to just cross the road? So we definitely need to think around the kind of infrastructure that we invest in to make sure that they're safe and healthy. And at least we've seen some improvement. So I'm hoping that the women in the room will push their circles to providing this. We've seen at least Githurai was able to modify a seat for the mothers. And of course, they agreed to cut down the cost, because then you'll be having fewer seats. But just think about those women who will be comfortable. Those pregnant women, it could be your wife, it could be you yourself, or another woman traveling with a child, just getting that ample space where they can be able to be comfortable and it is prioritized. And it may reduce the cost, but just think about the people you're serving. Are they more comfortable? Are they more convenient? Are you able to make sure that they're able to travel? And of course, we've seen all these beautiful buses. I have to say, my husband works here, and I really pushed him when we were designing this bus. I made sure that he made sure that there's that priority place seating for children and their caregivers. So at least this is being done in the modern buses, but also in the existing matatus, there's still opportunity where we can be able to change this happen. And just to conclude, maybe I've taken too much time. I have learned that being in these children and city spaces, that they are very small interventions, but they have magnificent impact. So one small project like what you've done in Gekomba, or just by providing a baby changing station, more mothers are able to travel to work every day. Because if you don't provide that space, those children will be served at home, and you want children to be part of the city system. Once you provide for the children, the mothers are happy, they're able to be more productive at work, they're able to earn more money, they're able to provide better food for the family and better education. So eventually you transform the whole city. And that's what WOWMAM is all about, creating cities that make children grow, learn, and thrive. If their caregivers are stressed out, then how will they provide for their children? How will they be able to earn more? What if whatever it is that they're earning, they spend all of it in hospitals because either the children had an accident or they're playing in dirty streets? So investing in children is a great initiative, and we've learned that it even makes the city better. And of course, innovators like myself better and happier. So we look forward to hearing from you. Feel free to reach out to us, and looking forward to seeing more women joining the space for advocating for children. So you can reach us out through email, Facebook, Twitter, any other time. Thank you very much. Constant, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Penina, for that presentation. A lot of very interesting things coming out on what WOWMAM is doing. And it's always nice to see how, for many years, we talked about how the city does not think about children, and particularly our city center areas, not just in Nairobi, but in many parts of the country. City center areas are not really child-friendly. You know, it's you can't expect a child to cross the road alone. You can't expect a child to even just safely walk to school. It's always in a way, to some extent, risky. And many of these small interventions build up towards us making our city more inclusive, more accessible, taking into consideration, giving human beings much more dignity in the way they live from day to day. Okay, we only have, I think, 25 minutes to go. I would like to give Dr. Anne Kamau a chance to share her presentation. As we wait for Dr. Anne Kamau to come back, I'll just go ahead and talk a bit about, give some case studies of what we call the pillars of socially just public transport. As I had mentioned earlier on, we have a number of what we call pillars of socially just public transport, being available, being affordable and accessible, inclusive, human rights and equity, considering human rights and equity, and also taking into mind sustainability. And there are different kind of examples, that from day-to-day life where we see people undergoing some of these challenges. Okay, I take an example of a neighbor of mine called Joy. So Joy is a business person. She has several meetings in different parts of the city due to the various businesses that she runs. And, sometimes, one of the, there's an example she gave me when, 2 weeks ago, she had a meeting in town, went to the stage, and for some reason that day, there were very few matatus. So, she boarded it, she boarded the one that was available, but then, she was the only one inside, and it took another 10 minutes for somebody else to come in. And, her meeting was in about, was an hour from the time she left the house. So for 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, she was there sitting down waiting for the matatu to get full. Okay, eventually it got full, then they got stuck in traffic, and she got late for her meeting about 15 minutes later. And that, showcases, how unfortunately our public transport is not always available. Okay, this is a business person now. What of the case if it was someone going to hospital? And we have to find ways, and advocate for public transport that does not keep people delayed. There's another story I had from a gentleman called Thomas. Thomas lives in Mathare, and we're doing some research with him, but he's on a wheelchair. And unfortunately, whenever he wants to go to town, he has to wait till about 10 o'clock because the matatus on public transport on Juja Road will not allow him to board during rush hour because they say he'll take too much time coming out of his wheelchair, and that is affecting how much income they're getting in that day. So those are, kind of case studies that you have where some of these pillars, can be looked into in a bit more depth in order to enable and allow for more socially just public transport. Now that we have Dr. Ann Kamau here, I will allow her to give her presentation. We don't have too much time. We have about 14 minutes to go before we close this session. And Dr. Ann, I'll leave it open to you.
Sorry, Constant, I had problems with unmuting. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I was getting the message, host card does not enable you to unmute yourself. But I hope you can hear me because I cannot see the other side now.
We can hear you.
I'm really sorry about this. I'll try to be quick for the time to catch up on the time. So I'm presenting work that was supported by the Board for Research and Education Foundations. The PI is Catherine Gateri, who is a member of Socially Just Public Transport Working Group, and working with me and colleagues from Zambia, in Chipata city in Zambia, but I'm only sharing the Kenyan component, which is focusing on the city of Nakuru. And the study is on whose city is it anyway, and interrogating the socially just public transport principle in urban mobility plans and projects in Nakuru city. So let me just go very quickly on the introduction, and then I think first, Constantine already explained the socially just public transport principles. As I think as I got in, very briefly, I got the study purpose and location, and also the methodology itself, and some of the key highlights in terms of what we found as we've been doing the research. Now, of course, when you think about the Sustainable Development Goal 11, it talks about establishment of inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities and communities that enable citizens to advance socially and economically without compromising the future. If we think about some of the issues that have been raised by Penina, we would want to really ask ourselves, how do citizens actually advance socially and economically without compromising the future if, for example, some of the facilities that Penina has talked about are not available? So it's the same case when it comes to public transportation. How do we ensure that people traveling in public transport systems feel safe, they're included, and that the cities are sustainable? So again, in the target 11.2 of SDG 11 also emphasizes the need to provide a safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems for all. So meaning we need to think about inclusivity again. And so when we think about public transportation, again, we want to ensure that then it is available and it is safe for all. And also from a perspective, has to do with human rights aspects and has to be sustainable. Oops, again, I'm hitting another snag. Can't scroll down. Let's done this. Constant, I'm unable to scroll down. I don't know what's happening today. It's not a good day for me. And what is now? We can move. Okay, sorry. Oh, I keep apologizing. Yeah. So in this study, therefore, using, of course, the fact that we are part of the Socially Just Public Transport Working Group, we wanted to understand, how well is the public transport system in Nakuru aligning or aligned to the pillars, but not mainly the public transportation systems, but the urban planning systems themselves. So we use the pillars, which if you look at this publication, you'll find them. So which were developed by this working group in 2000. And they are available, access, and safe and affordable, inclusive, embracing human rights principles and equity, and should be sustainable. Then this just by way of summarizing the pillars, and this was done by Constant Kapp himself, just by way of trying to help us summarize what these pillars are. And again, not really wanted to go through each one of them. I believe we can be able to access the literature and read around them. So again, just repeating the 5. So we had 2 primary objectives. One is to interrogate the application of socially just public transport principles in the current and proposed urban mobility plans for Nakuru, and also audit existing public transportation infrastructure development within the city of Nakuru from a socially just public transport lens. So we were targeting citizens, especially policymakers and planners, providers of public transportation services and regulators, also community leaders and some representatives, and also some cities, civil society organizations. And we began with a comprehensive review of urban mobility plans for Nakuru. And then again, conducted a survey, and also we are not yet concluded. We also want to do some key informant interviews and focus group discussions. So this is the city of Nakuru, where we are doing the study, which is towards the end of completion. And for me, Nakuru is one of the most progressive cities that we have. So as much as there may be some gaps, we also note that there's quite some progress. So in order for us to really understand how the principles are applicable, we need to understand how the people of Nakuru move. We know that 68.8% walk, 13.2% use motorcycles, 15.24% use public transportation, matatus, and other means, and only a small percent, 6.2%, use private vehicles. So the question is, from using the principles of socially just public transportation, then where should we invest more, even in urban mobility planning, and even in laying out the urban infrastructure? So we think that we need to invest more on the walking infrastructure, where 63.8% of the populations are, and at least in the matatu sector, where again, it's next in line, where people who are using public transportation systems, especially the matatus. So again, this is really what I just want to highlight with you as I go along. So, however, when you look at Nakuru, it has quite a bit of space. It is dynamic and growing. So there's improvement in public transportation services. This, I think, was a site where they're also putting up public transport terminals. And we know that Nakuru has both in town service and also intercity or intertown services. So it's about even how individuals connect to other cities or towns within the country. But a recent move by the county was to move the matatus from the central business area to outer regions of the city, and there was upheaval, there was a bit of riots. But that again, this is perhaps a move that is not, given the way Nakuru is organized, it's a move that perhaps is unavoidable. But that is not to say that the issues of social justice in terms of mobility should not be addressed. So while we recognize that there may be no space, we also recognize the importance of providing alternatives and safe alternatives for especially the people who work in Nakuru. So we find this is a gap. So you can see the population of people working, and you can see the facilities that are available are not necessarily very well built when you compare to other facilities. And this is a concern. It's a concern that we shared even through the working group with the Nakuru Municipal Board itself through the FES support. So again, it's something that we're still pursuing, and we hope that we can pursue this again further with the FES itself. So we looked at some cross-cutting issues. One has to do with sanitation. Let me not dwell too much on that because Penina has talked a bit about it. But that sanitation is a major challenge in Nakuru. Access to toilets, especially for the persons who are working and also for those in the public transportation systems. I think it's an issue that we've raised over and over, even in the Women in Transport conferences, and it's an issue that we want to continue emphasizing. Issue of roadworks, you've seen how dusty the walkways are, but we do appreciate that the county is really moving well, and we think in the right direction. But it's an issue that, again, we would want to re-emphasize that needs attention. The issue of security and lighting of stages, marking at the stages, we know that this has been a concern across the country, but also in Nakuru, it was emerged as a concern. and it's tied a little bit also to the lighting of the streets. So it's an issue that we think the county needs to continue addressing within and also taking care of even in planning and developing the mobility plans. Issues of sheds and stalls, this is both a positive and a negative. On the one hand, we know that there are stalls that are actually on the walkways, blocking the walkways, but we also know that there are others that are really properly positioned in a way that they actually promote integration of public transport systems and the survey and the citizens. So again, depending on how one wants to look at it, it's an issue that we think needs to be addressed. I've talked about interconnectivity again, but for us, again, there's a bigger concern between the 63% of the working population. When they're left at the outer terminus, how do they move or how do they connect them to the other terminus? So this remains a concern. It's a concern that we raised again through the FES work with the city, and it's a concern that we raised again in this study. So it's an issue that we are still following through, and we think that we need to have an interconnection bus that is affordable and cheap, that it is not punitive to the commuters who have to use these public buses. But what we know is that for now, it's just going to do the in-town service, but not yet rolled out. Issue of lighting, has been raised, so let me not emphasize that again. But of course, we know we also have the other city users, mostly transporting luggage for walking the pedestrians to the terminus, the bebas. But we also know these are not provided for, and often have to use the same space that the pedestrians are using. So again, it's something that we think needs to be paid attention to. Of course, traffic jam and congestion, again, it's an event that's happening in Nakuru of the past, but we also know that there's progress towards this. We know that some of our team members, the working group team members, Jerry and others, have been working with the county government, the city government, not the county, the city authorities now to improve traffic congestion in the city. So again, we might see better results in the future. So just by simple audit of some of the pedestrian infrastructure where we wanted to build more on, Nakuru has one major pedestrian bridge, if I may call it like this, footbridge. It's the most single important footbridge, but it is far from some of the main terminus in Nakuru, quite far from some of them. And some of these passengers are moving to access public transportation in other terminals. So in our own assessment, we think that there could be available pedestrian infrastructure, but it is not universally accessible. It is far from the pedestrians. It is far from other terminals. So an issue that we need to think about. Again, for pedestrians who have to walk, when they have to cross the roads, we know that Nakuru is one of the risky towns in terms of crossing the roads. And we think that as much as mobility programs are coming up in Nakuru, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of pedestrians to ensure that they cross the road safely and that their safety is guaranteed. And this is the same thing you can see, again, pedestrian crossing, and sometimes they have to compete with the vehicles. Again, in terms of where the infrastructure itself, part of it is dilapidated, not in very good condition, and especially if someone is on a wheelchair, for example, it might be difficult to really use the infrastructure that is available, the working infrastructure. And we also have encroachment by vehicles, sometimes by motorcyclists, and even business petty traders. So again, we think that the pedestrian issues have not really been taken care of properly. Then, of course, the safety of the working areas. This is a open manhole, and perhaps just someone came and removed the lid. So we need a little bit of citizen and education and also enforcement, improvement of the infrastructure in quite a number of areas that these are already ongoing. So again, it's an area that we think needs a bit of improvement. These kind of steps are very common in Nakuru. Very common, in fact, and usually pedestrians are pushed on the road, competing with vehicles, because also there's a lot of encroachment of the road itself. And this is really, if one is to work in Nakuru, is an issue that really needs to be addressed. How we ensure that, like if you're on a wheelchair, how do you even jump through over these steps? And this is really, to us, one of the major bottlenecks in terms of really enhancing mobility in Nakuru. So again, more or less like what I've mentioned, you can see some areas, quite sparse, and these are the areas which are not mostly used by passengers. So we ask ourselves, why is it that where there's more space, we don't have so many passengers, but also where pedestrian infrastructure is provided, you can see where vehicles are. So again, we think that is an issue that we need to pay attention to. So again, the state of infrastructure and that interacts with the pedestrian infrastructure is an issue that, again, we need to pay attention to. Of course, we can see there's an element to enhance cycling in the city, but again, perhaps this may not mainly for people accessing the terminus, the public transport services. So again, it's something that we really need to think about. So when you think about the socially just public transport system, we need to really think about a city for all, as I'm coming to almost towards the end. And we think that Nakuru has made good initiatives and is really heading in the right direction, even in terms of developing its own city mobility plan. We also know that there's an NMT policy for Kenyatta Avenue, which is already, we already know that infrastructure is being implemented. There's an effort towards establishment of the BLT facilities, but again, also a bit of stakeholders engagement, and thanks to the FES for supporting this. So we see these are some of the new developments. Nakuru really moving in the right direction, and we do hope, even in terms of greening the city, we see this is really happening. So we hope that this will continue, but also would appreciate, of course, and we hope that in the future, as the city grows and provides direction for even other secondary cities, that we'll see Nakuru also integrating very well the public transportation services, ensuring inclusion for all, and make sure that the majority who are poor and do not have to pay a lot to access public transportation services simply because of lack of proper integration of services. So allow me to stop there, Constant. I'm really do apologize for the hiccups, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ann Kamau. Very interesting developments there in Nakuru. One of the unfortunate things in Nakuru I noted is that there was, in as much as the public transport facilities were moved to the other side of the highway, safe access was not included or not put into consideration, either through tabletop crossings or some safe pedestrian overpasses. And the result, a friend of mine from Nakuru was telling me, almost every week there's an accident, and some of them being very fatal along the highway. So, those are some of the interventions that need to be looked into. I'm glad to note that I was looking at some documents from Kenya Highways Authority, and they had already noted on the necessity to improve some of the safe access. There's also linkage in the pedestrianized area from the images you showed between towards what they call Nyayo Gardens Park. So the park was also renovated, and that pedestrian zone is also linked to that. And from what I learned from them, is the city also wants to renovate what they call Lions Park, which is near the old terminus, the railway, and Top Market. So if those can be linked by safe infrastructure, that builds up towards making the city more inclusive. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We're actually 5 minutes past our expected time. I've not seen any questions for Dr. Ann Kamau in the chat, but I'm sure if people want to get to know more or have suggestions on some of these projects, please feel free to get in touch with some of our two presenters, or also getting in touch with Flone Initiative, who can link you up with any of us. There are a number of other similar initiatives that are going on. There's some initiative on ensuring that the proposed bus rapid transport is socially just. And we also attempted to ensure that some of these principles of socially just public transport were included in the proposed renovation of the Nairobi railway terminus, which you may have heard His Excellency the President recently signed an agreement with the British Prime Minister that they're going to we're funding the new central railway station. So there's a lot happening, and we're always willing to share and happy